Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. It is your purchase and pricing email concierge for asking the price of this or inquiring about the price of any Watchbox watch on any Watchbox platform. Email me for pricing, tmosso@thewatchbox.com. Launched for 2020, this is the reborn Breitling Chronomat. In fact, it is the Breitling Chronomat B01 Bentley under Georges Kern, CEO of Breitling. The Breitling for Bentley model line, going strong since 2002, no longer consists of a distinct model family. Rather, Bentley is used as a garnishing on existing Breitling models that will be changed to reflect the color and character of Bentley automobiles. And this is the Bentley branded Chronomat. You can see that on the case back. It has a lovely British racing green dial and a steel case that is 42 millimeters in diameter, 15.3 millimeters thick, and 50.4 millimeters from lug to lug, with a 22 millimeter spacing between the lugs. On my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference, you can see this is a sizable timepiece. Breitling for Bentley isn't exactly scaling down, even if the watches no longer occupy a separate model line. I would actually recommend you have a wrist of at least 15 centimeters circumference to wear this large, quasi-tonneau-shaped timepiece. That said, it's not as thick as it could be, given the complications, automatic winding, and 200-meter water resistance. So, in 1983, Breitling was fresh off its bankruptcy and had changed ownership from the Breitling family to Schneider family ownership. And the Schneider family decided to emphasize the aviation roots of the company, but develop modern watches using the traditional Breitling model names. And so the Chronomat, originally debuted during the 40s as an early version of the Breitling circular slide rule flight calculator, was reborn via input from the Italian Frecce Tricolore aerobatic squadron as an automatic flight chronograph. So Chronomat became chrono and automatic combined rather than the previous chrono and mathematics combined. The watch is still a robust aviation timekeeper, and in the image of the 1984 production version, whose design was informed by the Frecce Tricolore, here we have a combination of a broad tonneau case, a rotating bezel chronograph, and the signature Rouleaux bracelet that was a prominent feature ergonomically and stylistically of the original watch. Now, if you look carefully, you can see that the 22 millimeter lug spacing here doesn't actually describe the width of the bracelet, which flares beyond the lugs out to the edge. So this is not the lug width. This is actually quite a bit wider than the lug width. So if you are planning a custom strap, keep in mind that the bracelet on this timepiece is much broader than the lug spacing. So you might want to have the strap custom cut to be as wide as this primary link rather than the link that fits between the lugs. The bracelet is beautifully made. You can see that pins and sleeves are used to fit removable links so you can size it. We have a little bevel down the edge that is polished, contrast with the satin of the flank and the satin of the top. And we have these little polished intermediates built in. A double deployant clasp in steel, polished internally with twin trigger release. You can see the Breitling logo and the Breitling B. Although the Breitling company has long been associated with aviation, Georges Kern and CVC Capital Partners, current ownership and management of Breitling, want it to be known as a land, sea, and air sports company. So the Breitling B no longer features wings. Twin trigger release pops the clasp open. The Rouleaux bracelet is quite comfortable, but it does have some inherent rigidity. As you can see, I can't fold it the way I can fold a strap, or even most Milanese bracelets here. There's not a lot of flexibility here, so you're going to have to size it precisely to get the best possible fit. The case isn't quite a round case, and it isn't quite a tonneau. It has some of the qualities of each. It has satin case band, integrated lugs, lug hoods are polished. There's a little transitional bevel that's polished that runs all the way, lug hoods are satinated, and then there is that transitional polish that runs all the way along the flank of the case. You can see that there is a crown guard structure that expands to flank the pushers, which are ovoid in cross-section and somewhat conical when viewed from the top. We have the 1983-1984 onion-style crown. Here it is a screw down. The watch is 200 meters water resistant. We have a unidirectional rotating bezel, 120 clicks, making this watch an acceptable dive timepiece in spite of its aviation roots. Now, Now, the bezel is constructed with what's known as captive bezel methodology. So the bezel's held on by these little lateral screws. They're not just ornamental. They actually hold the bezel to the case. So unlike an Omega or Rolex bezel, this can't be snapped off by accident. It must be disassembled with tools, so it's very robust. The bezel is primarily polished, and you can see that the rider tabs, another feature from 1983, are satinated for contrast. The idea is that with wet, sweaty, or gloved hands, by gripping the rider tabs, you can more easily operate the bezel. Now, you can also appreciate that because it does have a luminescent pearl and it's unidirectional, it works as a dive bezel, and I can tell you the 120 click action is outstanding, both in terms of how it feels and how it sounds. Do a quick loom shot here, and you can appreciate that the entire dial is loomed. We also have those cool hammerhead indices. Note that all the sub-registers are loomed, and so is the seconds hand for the chronograph. The bezel pearl is easy to line up with the minute hand, and thanks to the dive style bezel, you have the ability to time 2 events concurrently, one with the chronograph, one with the bezel. The dial is tone on tone with a green metallic base and then black sub-registers, and under Georges Kern's stewardship, Breitling wants you to see tone-on-tone dials and think in-house movement. Indeed, that is what we have. You can see that the movement is Breitling's caliber B01, originally launched in 2009 on the Chronomat family. This is a very different type of chronomat, but it continues the lineage. The movement includes a number of subsidiary refinements, including a hacking seconds function that stops the movement altogether, so you can set it against a reference time. There's also a quick set for the date. The watch includes a vertical clutch chronograph, which means the chronograph engages without any stagger or jump to the seconds hand, and you can leave the chronograph running full-time. There's no additional wear and tear with a vertical clutch, so if you just like to have your chrono running full-time here, you can do that. There's also a column wheel, which you can see, literally a wheel with columns on it, and that wheel makes for a super crisp actuation of the chronograph. Now, the nice thing about a column wheel is that it is traditional chronograph watchmaking, much as Breitling would have undertaken in the first half of the 20th century when it was one of the most important innovators in chronograph design. On the dial side, we have applique indices, the logo, the B, the indices, and the hands are all rhodium-plated steel. Turning it over, you can see that although it wasn't designed for display caseback, caliber B01 is a pretty good-looking movement. It's an automatic winder with a 70-hour power reserve, a 4 Hz beat rate, 47 joules, stop seconds, quick set date, vertical clutch, column wheel, 5-position adjustment, and COSC Swiss chronometer certification. In this case, with the screw-down crown and the screwed-in caseback, the watch has 200-meter water resistance. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details of this Breitling Chronomat B01 Bentley.